Whatever you do, make sure you visit ashkicking.com for your home fragrance, health, and beauty needs. Quality products at a great price.
Hi, you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation. Woo! Hey. Yeah.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So according to Golovkin's own promoter, Tom Loeffler, the Golovkin versus Danny Jacobs pay-per-view numbers were somewhere around 170,000 buys. Now, what's kind of strange about the situation is usually it's not the promoter who announces the numbers. So with that being said, I'm not really sure what the actual numbers really are. There's been talks that the numbers are anywhere from 100,000 to 150,000. Matter of fact, I remember just about a week ago, or a couple days ago, Tom Loeffler was saying that, he thought the numbers would be around 150,000. Let me just go ahead and say this. Boy, it is good as hell to be on the hope list, ain't it? I mean, when you have your hope insurance, I truly mean it when I say everything is covered. Everything is covered. Let me give you guys some contrast so you guys understand what I'm saying right now. Do you guys know that when Floyd Mayweather fought Andre Berto, he did 550,000 pay-per-view buys? And do you know some of the biggest boxing websites like Yahoo Sports, they actually wrote an article and they titled the article, "Nobody Watched the Mayweather versus Berto Fight." That is what they titled the article. Nobody watched the Mayweather versus Berto fight. 550,000 views, and that is what they said. Okay? So, if nobody watched Mayweather versus Berto, who watched Golovkin versus Danny Jacobs? If it was 150,000, if it was 170,000, hell, even if it was 200,000, which would have been at least an improvement from Golovkin's first pay-per-view, which was 97,000 pay-per-view buys, right? The fact of the matter is, these decafs and people in the mainstream media, they cannot have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. You can't sit over here and say nobody watched Mayweather versus Berto, but then turn around and tell me that these are great numbers. Oh, 150,000. Oh, these are great numbers. But everyone who's now saying that these are great numbers, these are all the people that were laughing at Mayweather versus Berto numbers. These are all people that were laughing at Mayweather versus Berto numbers. You know what the Mayweather-Berto numbers suggest when you look at these numbers? What it tells us is even at Mayweather's worst numbers, he does more than double the numbers that the quote-unquote savior of boxing, Golovkin, does. You see, the fact of the matter is, the boxing world, at least the majority of the boxing world, because the majority of boxing fans and media, the majority of them are decafs. The majority of them are emotionally attached fans. To put a fighter on the hope list, on the top of the sport, and have him be the symbol of boxing. This is what their dream is. So they are desperately trying to do that with Gennady Golovkin. And if it doesn't work with Gennady Golovkin, they're going to look for someone else on the hope list to recruit. This is how it was over 100 years when Jack Johnson was the heavyweight champion of the world, and this is how it is today. History repeats itself. So with that all being said, if it wasn't for the pressure that they put on Golovkin to be this big superstar that's going to replace Floyd Mayweather and bring boxing back because they said boxing was dead, all that ridiculous, rhetoric. If it wasn't for all of that pressure they put on Golovkin, these wouldn't be the worst numbers in the world. But it's the pressure they put on Golovkin that makes these numbers somewhat of a failure. This is already Golovkin's second pay-per-view. Like I said, his first pay-per-view did 97,000 against David Lemieux, and now he does anywhere from 100,000 to 150,000. We already know Floyd Mayweather's first pay-per-view was over 300,000. Okay? Now, something else I want to mention is Terrence Crawford when he fought against Victor Postal. This is something we really need to clear up, because I notice a lot of decaps, they love to try to compare Golovkin's pay-per-view numbers to other people's pay-per-view numbers. The difference with Terrence Crawford is Terrence Crawford and Bob Arum, they were forced to put their fight on pay-per-view. That fight was never supposed to be on pay-per-view. The only reason that fight was on pay-per-view is because HBO was having financial issues and they could not afford to put that fight on regular HBO. So Bob Arum had to come out of pocket to put that fight on pay-per-view. That is the only reason that fight was on pay-per-view. That is the complete opposite reason that Golovkin versus Lemieux and Golovkin versus Danny Jacobs was on pay-per-view. In those fights, they elected to go pay-per-view. They had an option to either fight on regular HBO. They chose to fight on pay-per-view. So you can't compare, someone who was forced to put their fight on pay-per-view when even they knew that Terrence Crawford, it was premature. All of us knew it was not time for Terrence Crawford to be on pay-per-view. And no one was selling Terrence Crawford like he was Gennady Golovkin. Okay? So once again, with all that being said, these are the numbers. For the last time, Golovkin's numbers was probably anywhere from 100,000 to 150,000, which is very similar to the first pay-per-view fight he did against Gennady Golovkin. This is not a success, once again, when these are the same people that said nobody watched Mayweather versus Berto. Even if you wanted to say the Mayweather numbers was 450,000, Floyd still did more than double the amount that Gennady Golovkin did. You can try to fool the public all you want, but numbers do not lie, okay? Numbers do not lie. Now these punch stat numbers, they may lie because you got humans that are trying to keep count of the numbers. But when it comes to calculated numbers, pay-per-view buys, those numbers don't lie. Now the question is, can Gennady Golovkin become a superstar? Absolutely. Anybody can be a superstar, especially if you're on the hope list. But would I bet on it? No, I wouldn't. I don't think Golovkin is ever going to become a big superstar. I don't think he's ever going to reach Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd Mayweather status when it comes to being the cash cow in the sport of boxing. And the reason is simply this. First of all, he would need to get Canelo Alvarez in the ring, and he would need to knock out Canelo to even start the process of becoming a superstar. If he doesn't get the Canelo Alvarez fight, and there's not even a guarantee he'll beat Canelo, there's no way he's going to become a superstar. Who else is he going to fight outside of Canelo? Who is he going to fight to become a superstar? I don't believe, if Golovkin is struggling against a middleweight like Danny Jacobs, and that's not to say that Danny is not a good fighter, but I'm just saying, if he's struggling against middleweights, that means he's going to also struggle against super middleweights. I mean, Golovkin versus Gilberto Ramirez, James DeGale, those are some very tough fights for Gennady Golovkin. Even Carl Froch would have been tough. After what I've seen, Carl Froch may have even beat Golovkin if he didn't take this, 2 years off. Because, once again, I told you guys before, Golovkin does not look comfortable when fighters attack him. Especially when fighters have size and power that matches his. I'll close with saying this. I've criticized a lot of fighters. Matter of fact, Deontay Wilder, he stands out the most. I've criticized Deontay Wilder a lot. And it's so funny because when I criticized Deontay Wilder, none of these decafs ever got upset, right? None of them ever, was talking about my mama and got all personal, started to cry. But when it comes to Gennady Golovkin, you criticize him, and these fans, they want to roll on the ground, slapping their knees, crying and shit. Which, once again, just to show you how good it is to have that damn hope insurance. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.
This is Bobby, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.